good to be back. I have nothing for you. I'm done. This is my 7th one. I've told you everything I've got. Unfortunately, I signed a lifetime contract with these people, so here I stand. So, when I was faced with this process, I was like, there's really nothing I have to talk to these people about. So I'm going to do an experiment. So what I did was I'm doing the first crowdsourced Ignite presentation in history. And what I did was I just asked a bunch of people to send me stories. And if you think that that's me copping out, you're 100% right. It is, because as I said, have nothing to talk to you about. So Ignite really is just about telling stories anyway. So all I did was I just got people to send me lots of stories that I could condense down into 15 seconds in one slide, and I'm just going to tell them. And I tried to arrange them in some sort of meta story. So you might detect some type of logic to the stories that I'm about to tell. You might not. Don't feel bad if you don't. So I'm going to tell a story about a day out of life. So I was woken up this morning by this pack of maniacs and this young kid who were going nuts outside of my house. They were like animals. It looks like they were raised in a barn. Kids today. This is William. He doesn't look his best. That's because at 5:55 a.m. this morning, I pulled him out of his car, which had flipped over into a ditch in front of my house, as he turned a corner too quickly on his way to work. He's not a bad kid, though. He's not a yob. Woke up and my son was covered in a rash, so I rushed him to the doctor. I took him to the doctor. The doctor examined him and said to my son, you like to play with magic markers and you're a pretty good artist. To her credit, she didn't charge me for my visit. David, once upon a time there was a boy named David. He discovered that there was a genie living in his mom's teapot. He wanted to have superpowers. The end. I assume that the genie granted him superpowers. I was on a beach in Wales with my nieces, and we wanted to do something. So I started collecting bits of crabs and shells and made a pattern in the sand. We called it a crab graveyard. I think that they had fun. I'm either now the creepy uncle or the fun one. Movies suck. On the left, you have a cesspool of nonsense that makes absolutely no sense. And on the right, you have the same thing, but at least on the right, they had the good sense to at least write a script before they started filming. I was at a seminar, and a professor came up to me and said, there should be more graduate students here, punctuating his point by poking me. I wanted to rip his finger off and shove it up his ass for blaming me for no other students being there. The cunt. I knew a woman from India who was radicalized, and she asked me to take her to the local slums. I did. She was, at first, she laughed hysterically. Then she was mystified. Then she was sad. Sometimes I think that the real world doesn't exist in Europe. I think that we're just ghosts. I worked in a Japanese restaurant, and one day I made the mistake of serving rice vinegar instead of rice wine. Fortunately, when my boss discovered it, he saw the funny side of the situation. I knew a guy who was a veteran who traveled the world wanking elephants. It's a dangerous job. One time he got a black eye by getting hit in the face with an elephant's penis. He actually didn't wank them off. He actually crawled up their butts and massaged their prostate. There was a point in my life where I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was really confused, and I tried doing lots of different things, and what I realized that I was just being afraid of all these different options. So I stopped doing different things, and I've stayed with what I was doing at the time, and I haven't looked back since. Bert the Fly. There you go. So I met a guy who lives in Idaho, who is my father's 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 brother's great 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 grandson. It's a small world, isn't it? When I was 19, I lived in Sweden, and what I learned was that after a night out, you could ride your bicycle home. But also what I learned was by the time you got home, your kebab would be frozen solid. Sweden is indeed a wonderful place. I like to make puns about TV shows and hope that the networks will pick them up. For example, I have a story about a guy who tries to solve crimes of his wife's demise, and I called it, using his ebook, and it's called Dr. Richard's Kimball. At the end, I would just like to buy all of my contributors a beer, a nightcap. Thank you for being generous with your stories. It means a lot to me, except for my 9-year-old daughter, who was the guy with the one with the genie. And now I just have to figure out what I'm going to do for the 8th one. Thank you very much.